I've noticed in a lot of resin forums and message boards that I frequent, newcomers to the hobby are all asking the same question. What resin should I use? Because after all, not all resins are created equal. But don't worry, I've got you covered. This is not a review to let you know what brand of resin to go with, like Superclear or Let's Resin, but rather the different types of resins offered and what projects I feel they may be best for. When you're looking at epoxy resins that people would use for art, you will see three main types: coating resin, casting resin, and UV resin. Coating resin, to put it simply, is for coating a surface with a shallow depth or even doming. Casting resins is for when you want to make something out of a mold, and UV resin is cured using UV light. All resins have a maximum pour depth, and besides UV resin, cures by the way of an exothermic reaction and cures faster the hotter that it gets. Now, why would you want to pay attention to the maximum pour depths? Well, if you pour more than the maximum depth, you run the risk of flash curing, and that is considered thermal runaway, and it cures too quickly, making it unworkable, causes cracks, and huge bubbles or even craters. So let's talk about some of the different epoxy resins and their uses. First off, we're going to start with the oddball of the bunch, UV resin, not to be confused with 3D printer UV resin. When you cure resin with a UV light, a chemical reaction takes place that solidifies the resin. This reaction is called photopolymerization. Yeah, like I'd pass up the opportunity to use that big word. And the energy from the UV light triggers it. During the curing process, the photoinitiator in the resin absorbs the UV light and initiates the polymerization process. UV resin is great for making shallow or small items such as jewelry, keychains, or even for doming, because drop for drop, this is one of the more expensive resins. Since you need a UV light to cure it, you will need to use translucent molds so the light can penetrate all the way through. Next, tabletop resin. Tabletop or countertop resins are considered coating resins. The maximum pour depth is 1/8 of an inch, and this resin is usually a 1:1 mix ratio and is super thick like molasses. The thicker the resin, the shorter the working time or pot life. This is how long you have before the curing process starts. The pot life of tabletop resins is up to 20 minutes and a cure time of 24 hours. The obvious use is the same as the name. It's for countertops and tabletops. This resin has a high level of hardness and heat resistance. Fast cure resins are super fast curing and considered a casting resin. They have a maximum pour depth of 1/4 of an inch and are 1:1 mix ratios and are also super thick. The pot life is generally less than 20 minutes. The cure time of the one that I have from Let's Resin is 8 to 10 hours and boasts that you can demold after 4 hours. Now, why would you use a fast cure resin? Well, if you're on a timeline and need to get something done quickly, or if you're like my husband and patience is not your strong suit. Next up, art resins. They're considered casting resins, but because their viscosity is more like syrup than molasses, they can also be used to dome and coat items, just not tabletops or countertops, as it doesn't have the hardness level or heat resistance that is needed for table and countertops. Art resins have a 1-to-1 mix ratio and can be poured to a maximum depth of 1/4 inch. It is great for small items like cabochons, keychains, trinkets, decorative coasters, ornaments, trinket boxes, you name it. This is the most versatile and widely used of all the resins listed. If you wanted to pour a deeper mold, you can. You just need to pour in layers and letting each layer cure before pouring the next one. And if you're a fluid artist and want to protect your art, this resin is great for coating your paintings. And finally, Deep Pour Resins. They're also considered a casting resin. They can be 1-to-1, but are more likely going to be a 2-to-1 mix ratio. The maximum pour depths differ from manufacturer to manufacturer. Some are up to 1 inch, while others are up to 4 inch. And it's so thin, it's almost like water. The cure time also depends on the maximum pour depth. The 1 inch has a 24-hour cure time, and the 4 inch having a 72-hour cure time. Because it is so thin, the pot life can be up to 2 hours. These resins are great for deep molds. Now you can use these for shallow items too, but just keep in mind that the cure time is the same and the additives work differently in different types of resin. So how do you start without spending a ton of money up front? How do you know you'll even like a certain brand? Well, most companies have small sizes available, so you can start with those and do a few projects and see how you like it. Some also offer starter kits. These are awesome and can come with molds, resin, gloves, stir sticks, measuring cups, and sometimes additives too. They're a very affordable way to check out not only if you like the brand, but if you even like working with resin. My final piece of advice is to start small so you can get the hang of measuring and pouring, mixing, and bubble management. Make your mistakes on the small stuff, and yes, there will be many, before moving on to bigger projects. And if you found value in this video, I would appreciate the thumbs up, and if you're new here, I hope I've earned your subscription. Let me know in the comments what types of resins that you use and the projects that you've made with them. Because we all live in a world full of great ideas, and I just can't wait to find out, what will you create next? Thanks for watching.